I'm Julie Alexandria.
And I'm Jennifer Mercedes.
Between the two of us, we have over 2 decades of experience working in professional sports.
We're telling the stories of women who are at the top of their game in sports and business.
Welcome
to the locker room.
From dancer to Miami Dolphins cheerleader to regional sports reporter to anchor of NFL Network's premier headline show, NFL Total Access, MJ Acosta-Ruiz knows a thing or two about taking a chance and betting on herself. It is an absolute pleasure to have you here, MJ. Thank you so much for joining us here in the locker room. I have not seen you since our days in San Diego. It seems like forever. Thank you for being here.
That was like a parallel universe ago, Julie, but I'm so excited to be here with you guys. Our own locker room. I've been like waiting for this moment, truly.
Oh. I love it. We are so happy to have you here for so many reasons, and we're going to get into it. Let's just start off. One thing that has always struck me, in addition to your megawatt smile and your incredible energy, is your beautiful and strong sense of confidence. Where does that come from? Is that something that's learned? Is that something that you're inherently born with? Because I feel like it's something that you have taken with you every step of the way, and it just shines through.
Oh my God. So we're going to get deep real quick. I see here in the talk. It's so crazy and like funny that you mentioned that right off the top, because there are a lot of moments where I find that to be an internal contradiction for me. Like, I am very confident in my work ethic and what I bring to the table in so many aspects of the technical part of my job, right? Like I'm going to be in there and I'm going to work harder than everybody else. And in those things, I'm very confident. But inherently in me, in MJ, that has been and continues to be a very slow journey to get to that like place of self-love. And I do think that self-love and confidence go hand in hand in many ways. So I'm still learning that part to answer your question, but the work ethic confidence, that's been instilled in me my entire life from my parents who immigrated to this country. I mean, it was you either work or you don't eat. So it was not just a point of pride, but a necessity in my family and in our lives. So that part, got it on lock. The other side of it, still working, still growing, still learning.
Now, speaking of your family and that influence as a Dominicana from the Heights, fellow Dominicana right here, what role did your family play in your life and in the person that you are today?
Yeah, I mean, they've played probably the most pivotal leading role in my life, without question. I mean, my family is part of everything that I do, for better or worse. I know that they're going to give me the tough love, the very unfiltered reality of what's going on and what they see, but it all comes from a good place of them just wanting me to have a better life than they did, than both my parents did in the Dominican Republic. They came here for that better life, for that dream, giving up everything that they had built. And so that is always at the forefront of my mind whenever I do something. It's making sure that I make it count for them to hopefully get to a day when I can tell them, sit down, you're done, you're good.
I think a lot of us, yeah, I think a lot of us have that same dream. I mean, I know that's one of my goals, right? Like that's the top of the bucket list is retire your parents, especially when they're immigrants and they come here, they have to work so hard, like double or triple as hard as everybody else. I think that that's a dream and a goal that a lot of us have.
Yeah, it's interesting though with this career though, because they have that in them and that like, we just want you to be stable and safe and sort of set in life. It was tough for them to sort of understand why I wanted to go into this very crazy and unpredictable world of broadcast and journalism and entertainment. They just wanted me to sort of follow a path that was very safe and secure for all of those reasons. They wanted the very best for me. But even in their concern, they were still unbelievably supportive in every single turn, mainly because they knew I was going to do it anyway.
Same. I can totally relate to that. And I think a lot of cultures see that same thing as far as wanting their children to do something that's very secure and safe. And like, if you become a doctor, if you become a lawyer, you can get a job. As a journalist, I mean, I'm sure the same with you. It took a while. It's taken a while, for us to break down these doors and be where we are today. So yeah, I mean, I totally get it.
Yeah. And let's talk about that because the journey is not always guaranteed. You want to go to law school, chances are you'll become a lawyer. You want to go to medical school, you'll become a doctor. But you go to acting school, broadcast journalism school, anything that's in the public eye, even to become an athlete. And there is no guarantee that you will have a career or even have any sort of longevity in that career space. So let's talk about a point of the career that we've all experienced, and that is that it can be a very lonely place because oftentimes you pick up from your home and you have to relocate to cover a team, to cover a city, whatever it may be, in some obscure place. For us, it was San Diego. And we pick up and we move. And it can be very isolating. You don't know anybody, you don't know the city, you don't know the team, and you have to sort of create that relationship. Can you take us back and take us through what that was like for you in some of those quiet moments of relocating?
Yeah, it was a real start, and granted, like I had friends who are in the broadcast business who went to I don't know, the middle of America, I can't even, towns that we'll never ever recognize. So we were lucky in that sense, Julie, that we went to San Diego, California, pretty beautiful city, but still it wasn't home. And when you leave, you and I both come from the East Coast, very big cities, New York, Miami. I was very lucky enough to start my career in Miami, in my hometown, where my parents, were 45 minutes away from me. And so as a young journalist, at some point, you're likely going to have to leave that box, that bubble that that comfort zone. So I was ready to do that. What I wasn't ready for was what you described, sort of that isolation, that going to a place where you don't know a single soul and you're trying to show your merit, you're trying to earn your credibility, while at the same time you're sort of processing and sometimes compartmentalizing all of these feelings of loneliness and insecurity and just trying to figure it out, trying to make it. But then you got to be on all the time, right? So our literal job was to be this all the time. And so for me, it was such a stark juxtaposition to go from being on all the time and then going back to my apartment by myself and it's just being in the fetal position, quite literally, not knowing what was going to happen the next day. Am I doing the right thing? Was this the right choice? Good Lord, why did I leave? All of those feelings. And that's very real. And journalists specifically goes through this all the time. When you mentioned that sort of, we don't know what's coming next, right? When you talk about becoming a lawyer or a doctor, there's very specific metrics that you have to hit to become that next step in your career, right? For us in the broadcast space, it's very subjective. So if a news director loves you, great, you're good, you're in there. If that person, for whatever reason, leaves and somebody else comes on, you could literally lose your job at the end of that contract period, and you don't know. It's so fleeting, which part of it is, the draw, sort of the excitement, no, I got this, don't worry. But it is very scary still to this point, right? I'm at the national network level, you just never know. So betting on yourself, that part, learning to sort of be okay in that loneliness, which, that doesn't make sense. It does, none of it makes sense. Make it make sense. I'm still trying to learn that. I'm 37 years old. I still don't know what that means. But that it's always sort of inherently going to be a part of your journey through broadcast. It's scary, and most of us don't make it to sort of this level. I didn't know that I was going to make it to the level where I was aspiring to. I just sort of was a little engine that could until you tell me otherwise, and I'm still in that space.
Do you still feel that need to hustle?
Yes. Are you kidding? Every day, literally every day is a hustle. I'm hosting a daily show on a national network covering my favorite sport. It is huge. And I take a lot of gratitude and I try to be as present as possible every day. Okay, yeah, this is real life. I've worked over a decade to get to this point. But then the very, very sort of street side of me is all right, but what else are you working on to diversify your revenue streams, which is something they don't tell you about in journalism school or when you get into this industry. How are you having passive income? How are you investing in things to make sure that in that very subjective world, if somebody comes in and says, yeah, that MJ girl, I'm not digging her, that I'm going to be okay no matter what. And so it's always a hustle, girl.
No, and that's actually really great advice, because I think that that's something that a lot of us don't find out till like we're in this, like in it, and there's no turning back. But yeah, I mean, and one of the things that I think has benefited this generation is social media, right? Because it is so much easier if you are a journalist, if you are in media, to get those extra streams of revenue, because you can do so much with social media. So that is a great piece of advice. Now, speaking of advice, when you were coming up in this industry, was there ever another woman in the industry that was your mentor? I'm sure that you are a mentor now to others, but was there ever somebody there for you?
Yeah, there was a couple of people. I mean, one of my professors was at Barry University, Connie Hicks. She was a long-standing local news anchor in the Miami market. And she was as tough on me as you could possibly imagine. But I knew it's because she saw how much more I needed to grow, and she saw the growth potential in me. So I took every single thing she threw at me, but we also had really deep conversations about what I really wanted out of my life, out of my career balance. And to this day, she's one of those people that I always reference, top of mind. And then one of my very best friends in life and in this industry, Joy Taylor, we went to college together, both took class with Connie Hicks. That's how we met. And she has been a peer mentor every step of the way, and vice versa, right? I mean, it's been such a blessing to have somebody who is literally going through the same things you are in your career, who understands the nuances of what happens, not just in broadcast, but in sports broadcast specifically. And, you know, I never take her point of view and her friendship for granted, because it has been such an advantage just having one another.
You know, what's something that I really like about you and Joy and a lot of other women who've been coming up in the industry is that you guys have made it okay to be cute, to be fashionable, and be smart at the same time, and know what you're talking about. Because I feel like, you know, not even that long ago, and there still are a lot of men who believe, you know, women should be a specific way, look a specific way in order to be taken seriously, right? And it's not like it's not being over sexualized, but it's like we can still be fashionable without being sexualized in the industry, right? Like there's so much nuances that come with that, but I feel like you and Joy, specifically because you're women that I follow, have made it cool for us to look cool. You know, it's like, yes, we can wear hoop earrings. Yes, we can wear our hair curly. And I'm sure that Julie's going to get into this more, but like, it's important. It's an important aspect of the industry as well. So I want to thank you ladies for that.
Yeah, it's been interesting because my entire time, like I think people think I became a Miami Dolphins cheerleader and then I became a reporter. I was 28 when I became a Miami Dolphins cheerleader. So I was already in the business. I was already reporting. I was already hosting. So I was doing both at the same time. And that is a very direct reflection of sort of what I stand for. You don't have to strip away your femininity or your masculinity or your non-binariness or whatever it is that you are inherently does not equate your qualification for this job. So whoever you are and however you come to the party, that is not only okay, but it's needed in the space. So if you want to come in here and I want to wear my hoop earrings and my red lipstick, guess what? I can still talk ball just like everybody else. And so I think stripping away those very archaic industry standards have always been sort of very important to me. Like, stop it. Just because you think I should look a certain way, I'm sorry. Who named you like the grand poobah of my life? Don't recall that moment.
But was that something like, is that something that comes with experience, or was that because I would imagine, and I want to talk hair for a minute because we're ladies and we like to talk hair, because when I met you, you wore your hair straight. And there was a moment then when you started to pepper in wearing your natural texture. And as a female, as a woman of color who's on camera, there are so many expectations that are set for the way we have to look. And there are so many asks that are made of us. God forbid you're working on a green screen. The curls are very difficult to work with. But like, at what point did you make that decision? I'm going to be my authentic self. I'm going to wear the hoop earrings. I'm going to wear the red lipstick if I want to, and I'm going to wear my natural texture.
Yeah, it was in San Diego actually, and so here's part of like the cultural shift, right? Like I was in Miami before, where I'm Dominican, as you know, Jeffrey. Like I had all the Dominican hairstylists that could. Their like point of pride is being able to suppress that hair, girl, make it straight as possible. You're going to have the best blowout of your life. It was a cultural thing. It was almost a rite of passage for me as a kid to get my hair chemically straightened, right? Because the mindset was the more Eurocentric you look, the more successful and the more acceptable you will be. And that doesn't just go for communities of color. This is what the mainstream media tells us and feeds us from the moment we enter this planet. So it's very hard to sort of undo that mind bleep as you're especially coming into the industry. Then you get into broadcast and there's 5,000 consultants that, you know, your station or your managers bring in to tell you, you have to look like this. But all the other people that are in the little boxes on the screen look like this. So if you don't look like that, you're never going to make it. So that's what I did. I feel like that's what I had to do. Fast forward to San Diego, where there was no one who knew how to handle all this. I still don't know how to handle it. You know what I named my pro? It's Angela.
Yes.
She has her own
I
personality.
remember you asked me if there was anybody that I could recommend that gave a good blowout.
Yeah, it was impossible. So what happened was it was getting very, very damaged. And I often speak about like sort of having to fit yourself in that box and it eats away a piece of you, like a part of you dies. A part of me was literally dying and it was my hair. It was so damaged by that point because I had to do it myself. And it's just, you're running around, you're going to practices, you're going to games, you have to be on air, you have to like put all of this heat on it. I would brush it, ladies, and it would like wither away at the end. I was like, y'all, I'm about to be bald. Then what? Then what am I going to do? So one day I was like, you know what? I'm just going to let it breathe. And then I let it breathe for like a day too long. And I was like, shoot, I got to get to the station. It's going to take me like 3 hours to blow dry my hair. I don't have that time. So I was like, well, this is what it's going to be today. And I literally thought I was going to throw up before I walked into the news station. I was like, what's my boss going to say? What are the viewers going to say? But like, there's literally no time. There's no time. So this is what it is. And I was shocked at the positive response. Everyone was like, what? We didn't even know your hair was curly. Like, how would you? I'd never worn it like this before. And I was like, all right, bet I'm going to ride this train as long as possible. And like the shift in how I felt about myself, being authentically who I was. I mean, I felt like my entire life changed from that moment. I know it seems sort of trivial, right? Like, oh, it's just hair, but especially for us, it's a lot. This is the first thing you see. This is, if your hair ain't right, you're not gonna feel right that day.
No, girl, it is not trivial at all. And I completely relate in the sense, because I mean, I live in Jersey and grew up here. I mean, and there's Dominican salons everywhere. You know, I mean, I grew up getting my hair done in the Heights. So, I mean, like, it was never an issue. When I moved to Chicago 2 years ago for this job, the first thing that before I even moved, I was like, where is there a Dominican salon? Like, because if there is not a Dominican salon, what am I going to do? What, like, should I buy a wig? Like what am I going to do with this hair? Like, those are things that go through your mind because these edges need to be blow dried. Like, very, you know what I mean? Like, tú sabes, like, like it's very, very important. Yes. And it's real. And like, that's the first thing that I did. And I ended up like finding 2 different ones. And it was great. And I'm like, thank the Lord, because if not, I mean, I would have damaged my own hair because I would have been doing it myself all the time.
And listen, it was not cute at first, this transition. I mean, she's thriving now, but that was in 2017, I'll never forget, January 2017 was when I said, okay, I'm not going to straight. I have not heat styled it since more in 2021 at this point. And it was rough because it was so damaged. So it would like curl and then be like straight and then be like frizzy. And then like this side would grow, but this side wouldn't grow. And I was like, well, there's no turning back now. Like, I'm in it. So I had to like sort of like white knuckle through the very awkward little pro phase, but we've evolved. Angela has definitely sort of repaid me for all of my efforts.
You have done your fair share of celebrity interviews as well as huge pro athlete interviews. But the one thing that got me, and I have to ask you about this photo, it's your header on your Twitter account, and it's got you interviewing J-Lo and Shakira. I'm assuming what was before their dual performance for the Super Bowl in 2019. Tell me about that interview. What was that like? I want all the details.
I mean, no other, short of like Beyonce and or Oprah, like there's no topping that, truly.
No.
It was the week of the Super Bowl. So the second it was announced, so like the halftime performance for Super Bowl is announced sometime in October during the season. When I tell you, I immediately emailed like the top bosses, like, hi, how are you? This is why I should do this interview. X, Y, like reasons A through Z, and then we started all over again. I wanted to make sure that this moment, like this was huge. It was two mega Latinas who I have followed my entire life. And I didn't know if they would say yes, but I was like, I'm going to shoot my shot. And they did. And I was like, oh shit, we're in it now. Okay, got it. We're doing this. And then I said, well, one of the main reasons I said is I think that this is very important for us to reach the Latino audience. Like I need to be able to do this interview in Spanish as well. There was nobody else at the network who could do that. So I was really pushing for that. And we did it both. So I had 10 to 15 minutes exclusively with J-Lo and Shakira in the same room. And when I tell you, I mean, first of all, they're goddesses among us. Like, this isn't fair. All women were not created equal. It's very obvious. Like, when they walked into the room, J-Lo specifically, I kid you not, you guys.
The glow.
Like
I know.
A real literal glow. She like floated into the room. I thought I was going to pass out. And this was pre-pandemic, right? So we're literally like this close. I was like, oh my God, I'm not worthy. They could not have been nicer. They were so cool, so open to everything. And my favorite part was when we switched. We did the English version first. I was like, all right, we're going to do the Spanish language. I don't know if they thought like an interpreter or whatever, but the second I switched and started speaking in Spanish, they both went, like, it was like a noticeable, like, oh, okay. And like that, I'll never forget that moment. And J-Lo after was like, well done, sweetie. I was like, are we still rolling?
Oh my God, yeah, did you get that on video?
I have yet to see the raw footage of it. But
oh no, let me tell you, when I saw that you were doing that interview, when I saw that, I mean, as a fellow Dominican Latina, and like Issa Rae says, I'm rooting for everybody Black. I'm rooting for everybody Black, everybody Latina, everybody Dominican specifically. So when I saw that, I'm like, you go, girl. Like, that is such a big moment for you in your career, and for us as Latinas, as a representation. Like I said, it matters. For me, the person that I saw growing up was Selena Estoribio, and she was the one that I could see. I was like, I can do that. Like, I can see myself. And so you've become that person now. And specific, like when you're interviewing J-Lo and Shakira, the two people who freaking killed it at the Super Bowl, like, oh my God, what a moment for you. I mean, it was amazing. I still like get chills because it was such a big moment.
Julie, you know exactly what these like press boxes are like, right? It's very predominantly male, predominantly white male. Mm-hmm. So no different at the Super Bowl, right? So we're ready, right? I've done the interview. I'm like hype as hell. Like, we basically got free seats to this like halftime show. No one in that press box was paying attention. Then here I am like living my best life and everyone's like, type. I mean, I thought I was going to lose my mind. I was like, why are you guys not hyped about this? I was like, even if you don't understand like the music, like, bro, it's still J-Lo and Shakira out there. Like, y'all all right?
Girl, I almost cried. I was like, I almost had tears. I'm like, is this like for real right now? Oh my God.
I was doing demo. I did not care. They were not going to take that moment for me. I was like, this isn't for you anyway. Whatever. I'm here. And so, like, one of my bosses is sitting like a couple rows in front of me, and he's just looking back, dying laughing. Like, yeah, that seems about right. Like, what's happening right now? I was like, I don't care. This is like history right now, and none of y'all are even looking up to see what's happening. I was offended personally.
That was an incredible moment, because if you take into consideration where we were as a people, where we were as a country, where we were as women coming out of a 4-year, very dark time.
Yeah.
That was a moment. That was a cathartic moment. The future starts now, and the future is bright.
Yeah.
And that's what it meant to me watching them. I said, this is a major delineation of the bad times are behind us, and like, let's usher in a new era, a new moment. But I want to go back to what you said about when you heard that these two women were headlining, that you got on your keyboard and you straight away asked your higher ups, what does that say? And can you speak to the power of putting yourself out there and asking for what you want? Because so many women are so afraid inherently to ask for what they want.
What I've learned is, listen, at the baseline of everything, the worst case scenario is a no. And how many times have we heard no? More than I can count, right? So I'm like, if that's the worst case scenario, then what's stopping me from just asking? Who knows? Just shoot your shot. So like every year at the beginning of the year, I don't really make resolutions, but I pick sort of a theme for the year. And for 2020, ironically, it was be bold. And it sort of started with that before we got into 2020, because this was like October, but I was like, okay, this is happening in February. I was like, I'm just going to do it. Like, if they say no, whatever, at least, but they don't know. Like, you have to stop thinking that people will automatically put you in that room, right? You have to advocate for yourself at every step. So I couldn't have sat there like as the only Latina at the network and been like, oh my God, no, they're for sure going to think that like, it just makes sense that I should be in there. Why would they? Like, they're not here for me and my advancement. Like, I'm here to do a job. So as part of my job was making sure that I showed them, these are the advantages of having me do this interview. This is why I'm the only person who could do it in 2 languages. We're reaching a much bigger audience, an audience that often feels very left out, especially within the NFL, even though Latinos make up a huge portion of the fan base there. So I knew all of these things. And I said, all right, this is where I can flex that muscle. And this is why it's so important for me to be here in this space. And if I don't say it, I can't expect them to just like magically know. They're also not mind readers. Let me make it as easy as possible for my bosses. So that was my mentality in that. And also like, oh my God, I really want to do this interview, but I didn't know. I had no guarantees. I just like sent it out there and I was like, all right, vaya con Dios, let's see what happens. And it worked out. But, you know, we put a lot of work and a lot of research into it. And there was once it got approved and vetted, there's a whole process, as you guys know. You have to go through, both of the artist teams and making sure that they're okay with what you're going to bring to the table and how we're going to set things up. I mean, it was this whole like orchestrated thing. And then I started getting nervous, like once I walked into the room. But the point of it all is you have to try. Now, when you try, make sure you're ready though. Like, don't just start firing shots without like any aim or any vision for it. I knew what I was bringing to the table and I was ready to step that up and go full in for it. And I think that's why it worked out so well, because they were like, well, damn, well, she just explained the whole thing. Like, how could we possibly say no? Even if they did, I was prepared for a no, but I knew that I had presented the best possible version of what it could look like at least from what I knew in my mind. So they saw that enthusiasm and the benefit in that, and that you just have to be bold. It's gotten me a lot farther than playing timid and like just waiting for things to happen. You have to try and go up there and get it.
And bet on yourself, like you said in the beginning. Continue to always bet on yourself. When I interviewed Juan Soto the beginning of this year, there's a lot of talk about who's the best player in baseball. Is it Bryce Harper? Is it Juan Soto? Is it this? Is it that? And I asked him, who do you think is the best player? And he said, you know what? I think Mike Trout is a great player. I think he's the best player in baseball. But if we're going one-on-one, yo voy a mí. Siempre voy a mí. And like, that's the attitude that we all need to have. That's the best piece of advice I think that we can give all women in this industry is siempre a ti. Always bet on yourself.
Totally. I mean, guys do it all the time.
Yeah.
Every day. And they don't flinch. They don't hesitate. We've always been sort of conditioned to play it safe and like know your spot and know your role and stay in your lane. Nah, man. I grew up driving in Miami. Nobody stays in their lane.
Or New York, for that matter.
Oh, MJ, I love you so much. Thank you for this. You are absolutely phenomenal. And I am so happy. We are so excited to see everything that you do in the future. I mean, the future is yours, girl. I see big things for you. I mean, you are killing it on NFL Network, but the sky's the limit. Thank you for joining us here in the locker room. Thank you for your time and for those gold coins, because you put out some expert advice. So we appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us.
This was amazing. Like a little brunch, but with no mimosas.
Next time.
I'd rather have to earn it, and that's okay. It's not always fun in the moment, but it's always more rewarding when I earn somebody's trust and respect than if it's just given to me.